Social class and educational achievement. There are many factors that influence children's educational achievement, and sociologists divide them into factors outside school and factors inside school. This division is somewhat simplistic, as the factors influence each other. The major external influences on achievement are social class, gender and ethnicity, and social class has far more impact than the other two. There were many classical studies of social class and educational achievement in the 1960s, showing the advantage of middle-class students, and recent studies have shown the situation remains much the same in the early 21st century. This podcast will consider the evidence of a link between social class and educational achievement, and discuss competing explanations of that link. Firstly, the evidence. The impact of social disadvantage is clear from a very early age. In deprived areas, identified by the Sure Start scheme, government figures show that many fewer 3- to 5-year-old children reach a good level of development than do so in less deprived areas. At 11, only 22% of those on free school meals achieve level 4, the expected level in their SATs exams. Government figures show working-class pupils are more likely to fall behind in reading, writing and number work than their middle-class peers. They are also more likely to suffer ill health, which impacts on their school performance, and more likely to be placed in lower sets, and more likely to leave school at the minimum leaving age. At 16, 77% of the children of higher professional parents achieve 5A star to C grades at GCSE, whilst only 33% of the children of routine workers and the unemployed achieve those grades. Over half of the young people over 16 years old not in education or training, the so-called NEETs, come from working class backgrounds. The situation continues in higher education, where 79% of the children of higher professional parents attend university, and only 21% of the children of routine workers. Indeed, this overestimates the situation of the students from routine backgrounds, since the majority of them attend local universities to avoid the high costs of living away from home, and yet they still finish their studies with higher levels of debt than those from higher professional homes. At the same time, the link between private education and the universities of Oxford and Cambridge is well documented. This, then, is strong evidence requiring explanation. New right theories consider that the relative success of middle-class students in education comes from their superior academic ability. Following the functionist idea that education is a meritocracy, the new right link academic ability, as measured in IQ tests, with educational attainment. Murray suggests that IQ is 80% inherited. Thus, able parents pass their ability genetically to their children in the same way as they pass hair or eye colour. Their children do well as a result of high ability, and are rewarded with high-level qualifications. As a result, they follow their parents into the higher levels of the labour market. Thus, social class is a reflection of ability rather than advantage, and we should not be concerned about middle-class success in education. Rather, we should expect it and applaud it as evidence of meritocracy. This view has been criticised by many sociologists, who relate middle-class success in education to material and cultural factors. In the early 1970s, Halsey correlated poverty with students leaving school at the minimum leaving age, and pointed out the cost of a notionally free education. Students need to buy materials for some subjects, books and stationery, and pay at least in part for school trips. Clothing's important too. There's evidence that students wearing outdated or non-designer clothing are bullied by their peers. At the same time, a young person in the labour market would contribute to the household income. The government has recognised this by paying education maintenance allowances to those from disadvantaged homes to encourage them to remain in education. Over the years, governments have also given higher funding to schools in disadvantaged areas through a number of schemes to try to overcome the impact of material deprivation on academic achievement. Now we turn to explanations which focus on culture. In his classic study of the home and the school, Douglas showed middle-class parents had a more effective focus on education, whilst in the 1960s Bernstein reported that working-class children had restricted speech codes, which disadvantaged them at school. In the 1970s, Sugarman suggested that the working class had values such as present-time orientation, fatalism, and collectivism, none of which helped their educational achievement. At the same time, middle-class children thought in terms of long-term study, careers, and future planning. Sugarman suggests that this is a reflection of their relative positions in the labour market. Working-class manual workers have little security and few prospects of promotion, whilst the reverse is true for middle-class workers. These early studies suggested that working-class culture was culturally inferior to middle-class culture, and they spoke of cultural deprivation. Keddy suggests that this approach blames the victim, and the problem is not working-class culture, but the school's attitude towards it. In the 21st century, Feinstein found that the most important factor in educational success is parental interest. He states that class differences in parental support cause class differences in educational attainment. Blackstone suggests that working-class parents are very concerned about their children's achievement, but that their contact with the school is less frequent, because they work longer hours and are less able to take time off work. Also, they're put off by the school's middle-class atmosphere. Marxists are even more critical of the culture of educational institutions. Althusser speaks of the school as part of the state ideological apparatus. By this he means that schools socialize children to conform to capitalist values and accept their place in society. Bowles and Gintis's study of schooling in capitalist America demonstrates the way that work casts a long shadow over the education system. In the correspondence principle, they show how workers need to accept authority, to do dull, repetitive, fragmented work, and to be motivated by external rewards. At school, the hidden curriculum, literally the things students learn outside the classroom, are about obedience, respect for authority, working hard despite boredom, and being motivated by high marks rather than interest in the subject. Students learn to accept authority, to be passive and docile. Bowles and Gintis found careers advice channeled more creative students into vocational courses, while passive students with the same grades were encouraged onto academic routes. The myth of meritocracy encourages students to accept their position in education and in outside society, and capitalists receive the passive, docile workforce they require. Bourdieu speaks of cultural capital and cultural reproduction. He believes that schools reflect middle-class values, and therefore middle-class parents understand them. These parents are able to support their children through the system, providing external help when needed, and ensuring the school meets their children's educational needs. They may even buy advantage in private education. This cultural capital enables middle-class children to succeed in education and to get the qualifications for higher-level jobs. Thus, the education system performs its key task of cultural reproduction. It ensures that middle-class children get middle-class jobs, whilst working-class children, hampered by their lack of cultural capital and eliminated by the examination system, come to understand that education is not for them. They give up and enter the lower levels of the labour market. Duertz also shows advantages of both material and cultural capital in her work on parental choice in education. She explains how middle-class parents consider a wide range of schools for their children, how they can afford transport or even move house to get their child into the school of their choice. They are even willing to follow the appeals procedure and engage lawyers to fight their case. Middle-class parents are skilled choosers. At the other end of the scale, the working-class disconnected choosers consider only one or two local schools, have limited access to private transport, and believe there's little difference between schools. This means they are unlikely to benefit from the introduction of the market into education. Indeed, Ball points out that the market has diverted funding away from special education needs to marketing activities in order to attract the high-achieving middle-class pupils and score highly in the league tables.